Hello traders and welcome to today's market update. My name is Nick and I'm going to be going through some of the major currency pairs with you guys and doing some analysis here on the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Going to be taking a look first at euro dollar to see what's going on with this currency pair. Let's go ahead and jump into it right now. So let's take a look here. Euro dollar on the 4-hour chart. We have some interesting stuff going on. You can see price trading low that we talked about last on the last update. You can see price coming down into this region here. Currently kind of chopping around. What I do want to talk about is the fact that price is having a hard time breaking through this low. Now, it does not necessarily mean that it cannot break through, but you can see price is consolidating here as buyers and sellers try to determine the market's next move. So what you can see here again is we did find some temporary support here on euro dollar. You can see as price came down into these lows, we did find a nice little double bottom with a nice spike to the upside, but ultimately was erased by sellers as price was pushed back down to test those lows again. Notably though, you can see we are multiple times testing that low and still finding buyers in that general vicinity. So it's not out of the question that we see some sort of a pullback here off of these lows on euro dollar. In fact, that's what the technicals would lead me to say. But ultimately remember that we don't know where the market's going. We only have educated guesses or predictions that we can make based on what the technicals are telling us. So what we are seeing again is a demand zone here on euro dollar as price does come into these levels, test those lows and find buyer support structure. You can see especially with this one long wick, I really like that because you can see that price did try to push through those lows, but then ultimately buyers rallied and pushed up higher. So again, euro dollar looking pretty interesting there as potentially a nice bounce off of these multiple bottom lows. Also kind of looking a little bit longer term, you can see if I back up, we did kind of break through those lows here. We did notably break some of those recent lows, which are significant, right? So we did get a big break of that structure. You can see price tried to kind of rally up, but did not quite get there. So if price can start to come up into here, I think that that may actually be a major level of, we'll make it pink. You can see major potential level of resistance if price does retrace back to those levels off of a low. So maybe an intraday opportunity if you find some sort of setup that you do like with those major levels to look at. Let's go ahead and move on to GBPUSD, guys. This is the pound dollar, which has been moving really interesting. You can see price breaking through the lows yet again here as price trades lower. Last Friday especially, we had some really bearish movement across the lows that we had recently been seeing. For example, you can see that we were seeing an interesting little potential setup here. You can see we kind of had a broken head and shoulders pattern. Let me explain that really quick. Again, this support structure actually getting broken through, not much of a fight back here by the bulls. You can see price breaking low right through that structure and kind of closing out on a low note on last week. So what do we mean by a broken head and shoulders pattern? What you can see here, if I just kind of draw this out, is you can see that this area here was kind of a shoulder, right? A potential head and a right shoulder. So you can see we actually did kind of have the start of a inverted head and shoulders, but we did not quite break this neckline, which is what you usually want to see. I know this is a rough cut drawing, but bear with me here, guys. What you usually want to see is some sort of break of that neck structure to kind of confirm that the head and shoulders pattern has completed. And that's not what we saw. We actually saw a rejection across the neckline. Price broke down and even broke through that support level to form new lows as of Friday for the last several weeks. So just an interesting movement there on pound dollar. I think it's not out of the question to see some sort of a retracement here, but personally not looking to jump into a buy trade anytime soon, just because we have seen some very strong selling pressure and would look to potentially see some sort of confirmation or at least some sort of kind of pattern set up for a reversal before looking to get long. Also, I would not look to short the pound personally because I think it's trading at kind of lows. I think it might be a little bit extended to the low side. One opportunity you might look for if you are a bear on a pound a dollar is potentially a retrace up to this kind of trend line that we have seen playing out here on, again, the pound. So interesting to see if we can get some sort of retracement. That might actually be a nice little trade setup for a short side action trade. Just something there on pound dollar to consider. USDJPY is going to be our next one, guys. Looking again at the 4-hour time frame, what we see here is we are seeing kind of some higher lows forming in this market, which is kind of interesting because we have seen some very strong sell-off across the board here on USDJPY on the daily time frame especially. You can see one thing interesting has kind of played out. You can see if I draw this trend line here, this was our level of resistance along the way. What you can see here, and we'll get a good picture here if I draw it out. You can see here was our levels of resistance. You can see price rejecting multiple times as sellers remained in control of this market. But we did get a nice break of that structure. You can see price closed above, broke above, and pulled back to that level here. Found minor support, broke back down, tested it once more, and ultimately rallied very, very strongly off of that retest there, which is interesting because you can see we also did form a higher low, which is huge because this is kind of an indicator that potentially we have some sort of new trend or some sort of new market wave in this particular market, right? So this particular pair is moving up. So we'll see if we can get a continued push. I think we have some major levels here to look for, as well as here, kind of. So this general zone right here might be an interesting level for some sort of overextended move and some sellers to step in. Ultimately, we'll see how price trades out there. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is going to be Brent crude, guys. Taking a look at oil here this morning. What we see here is price holding this zone pretty nicely. I'll quickly draw. You can see this kind of general vicinity holding the level very, very nicely multiple times. Price kind of chattering off of these lows. You can see price came down and rallied really strongly there. Again, currently pulling back. We did see it break temporarily, but it looked more like a fake out as price traded back above it. Now currently testing that zone multiple times, and we may see a break to the high side just based off of kind of what we see here. Now I do want to say that we have some barriers to look out for on the bearish side. You can see that this kind of general trend line here may be kind of an interesting level to watch. We might see some sort of intraday movement to the upside and find some sort of sell pressure in that general vicinity. Let's go ahead and take a quick look in reference to WTI crude, see what we have going on with this particular market. You can see a similar structure kind of holding these lows. You can see on this particular setup, we had even less of a fake out to the bottom side. You can see this general vicinity held pretty nicely and has been consolidating or chopping sideways since. So again, might see some sort of reaction to the upside here as sellers may be getting tired, but we may see continued selling if price can get a nice pullback to a significant level. XAUUSD, this is gold, guys. I want to take a look at the daily time frame as we have been watching it pretty regularly on our market updates. You can see we have had a flag pattern that played out here pretty nicely. In fact, we talked about this particular move being our flagpole. We saw consolidation in this area. Price broke above again and actually is kind of pulling back to test those lows, test that structure. You can see we did get that flagpole, right? So here's our flagpole. We had that consolidation break out to the high side, currently pulling back, looking for potential buyer support, and we may see a continued push off of those lows. Just a technical idea here as momentum is very strong in gold, and we may see some sort of continued move there, just following up with our analysis from days past on our market update. So GBPJPY is the next one I want to talk about because we are currently testing a major structural low, which I think is very important to talk about. You can see price forming triple bottoms back here. You can see 1, 2, 3. We had a triple bottom set up there as price did rally from there about, 177 pips. So a nice movement here. We're looking to see if we get some sort of potential reaction on this particular pound currency pair, pound yen. We may see some sort of reaction. You can see price already sort of getting us a little bit, a pop of 17 pips here this morning off of this structural low. So we'll see if we can get any sort of continuation or push back up. If we do start to see a major movement upwards, guys, what we may see is price at least come to test this area here. Maybe even on the intraday level, we might see price come down, come up to test this light pink area in here, which is a potential level of resistance. Why? Well, it was a major structure previously, and as price may come back up to there, sellers may be ready to look to sell. GBP New Zealand is our next one here. As price trades lower and lower on all currency pairs involved with the pound, you can see, or at least where you have pound in the first currency, right? So seeing a rollover effect here on pound New Zealand as price is kind of finding some sort of seller resistance in this general area. What we may be looking for on an intraday level is if you draw your fibs, you can see if price is pulling back, you can see we are getting kind of a reaction to that 38.2% retracement. You may even be able to drop down to some lower time frames here on maybe on the 1 hour. You can see price responding to that area. We also have a significant area of presence kind of in this area towards that 61.8 off of those major levels down here. Just something to consider. USD Swiss is the last one I want to talk about here, guys, on the 1 hour time frame today actually, because I think we have some interesting momentum breaking through the highs here. You can see breaking upwards, and if we see a pullback here, I really like a potential trade setup here, potential long setup on that 38.2% retracement. Why? Well, it has a nice little combination with this price action area here. Again, we talked about consolidation recently on another chart that we just looked at. Similar on USD Swiss, we have some sort of consolidation here where price ultimately traded higher, and if price comes down to that level, maybe looking to repeat that process and find buyer support. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this market update. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. We will catch you next time.